keeping my lamp full, waiting on the bridegroom. Cause when the kingdom comes, say I wanna be ready.
Welcome back to Lamp Oil Stock, a channel where we look at issues from an Israelite point of view. And we want to thank you all so very much for watching our videos, subscribing, joining us out on Facebook, all those type of things. Thank you guys for all the stuff that you do. Today we're going to continue on with our ongoing series, our Red Letter Bible series, part number 18. We're starting a new chapter today. So what are we looking at?
We're going to look at Matthew chapter 7, verses 1 through 5.
Okay.
Verse 1, chapter 7 says, "Judge not, that ye be not judged.
2.
For with what judgment ye judge, ye shall be judged, and with what measure ye mete, it shall be measured to you again.
3.
And why beholdest thou the mote that is in thy brother's eye, but considerest not the beam that is in thine own eye?
4.
Or how wilt thou say to thy brother, Let me pull out the mote out of thine eye, and behold, a beam is in thine own eye?
5.
Thou hypocrite, first cast out the beam out of thine own eye, and then shalt thou see clearly to cast out the mote out of thy brother's eye."
Okay. So this is what we're going to be looking at today, 1
Right.
through 5. All right, so let's start at the top like we usually do. And the goal, for anybody new, the goal is that we look at these words, and according to Christ, he says he came in his Father's words, meaning everything he said should have come out of the Old Testament.
Right.
Okay, so if we start off at the top, this is probably the most used verse
Yes.
by Christians.
By everybody.
Yeah, I was going to say by Christians and non-Christians alike. Judge not, that ye not be judged.
Right.
Okay, so as we start off with this one, as I said, we try to find the things in the Old Testament.
Okay.
So I went back and searched up judge, because that seems to be the easiest way to do this.
Okay.
And I think there is, translation error is not the word I want to use, because
Right.
the word that's used there is judge. But I think it's an idea error. Error. I think it's an idea problem. Let me see if I can kind of get this thought out to you for a second.
I
Okay.
think it's straight up evil.
What do you mean?
Well, judge has several different meanings, and some of them seem to kind of contradict each other. And I think this was done on purpose so that when people read the Bible, as with other words, they get confused as to what it means. I think this is just a way of bringing confusion to something that shouldn't be confusing.
Well, okay, I don't disagree with you. I mean, I think the thought that you're bringing out with the confusion is what's just evil. Not the verse. I don't think the verse is evil.
No, I'm not saying the verse is evil. I'm saying that the word choice that was used is judge. I think that they should have used different words for the context. Because, like I said, judge has several different meanings, and unless you understand what all of those meanings are, then when you read it, it's just confusion.
Okay, so that is part of the point that's pretty much the point that I'm going to here. So let's start off at the beginning. If you look up judge and you go back to where judge starts, first the word judge starts to show up in the Bible. The first place where it gives you a kind of a beginning explanation of it is in Exodus. Now, the word does show up in Genesis, dealing with Abraham and some of the other kings. He's judged, things like that.
Right.
Things like that happen. There's another spot where where Amalek, I want to say that's who it is, one of the kings says, well, he's going to be this, and he's a judge of us, So the word shows up in a couple of places.
Right.
But in Exodus 18, in Exodus 18:20 through 24, Moses is what's happening to kind of set the scene for this. Moses, of course, has just brought the children of Israel out of Egypt, and they have questions. They have issues between each person. They have lots of problems, and of course, Moses is the one leading the way. So they go to Moses and ask him every question that they have.
Right.
Okay, but there's so many people, and so many of them have questions that's all he is doing all day long. So he turns to the Most High and is like, "What should I do? What should I do?" And the Most High tells him, "Okay, this is what you need to be doing," and that's what these verses right here are about. So if you don't mind, can you read this for me?
Exodus 18, verse 20 through 24. And thou shalt teach them ordinances and laws, and shalt show them the way wherein they must walk, and the work that they must do. Moreover, thou shalt provide out of all the people able men, such as fear God, men of truth, hating covetousness, and place such over them to be rulers of thousands, and rulers of hundreds, rulers of 50s, and rulers of 10s. And let them judge the people at all seasons. And it shall be that every great matter that they shall bring unto thee, but every small matter they shall judge. So shall it be easier for thyself, and they shall bear the burden with thee. If thou shalt do this thing, and God commanded thee so, then thou shalt be able to endure, and all this people shall also go to their place in peace. So Moses hearkened to the voice of his father-in-law, and did all that he had said.
Okay, so there's a little bit of context because of the father-in-law at the very end.
Right.
This situation is brought up because as Moses is trying to judge with all these people, he's in counsel with his father-in-law at the time. I just wanted to bring that part up.
Okay.
But anyway, the bigger point of this particular part is he is saying, first off, to be a judge, because the Most High is telling Moses to select able men which fear God, men of truth, hating covetousness. And that is what the core idea of a judge is. Okay, is a person who meets those qualifications.
Okay.
And if you'll notice, the very first line was teach them the ordinances and the law. This is not a personal matter for a judge. This is an impersonal matter. They are judging between whatever their whole point is to deliver the ordinances and the law to people. That's the point.
Okay.
Okay. Now, later on, as we go a little bit further ahead, you'll know as we know, there is a book of judges in the Bible.
Right.
Okay. And those judges are people who are leading Israel at the time.
Right.
Right. So the concept of judge, the actual concept of a judge, is a ruler over people. That's kind of the idea. Okay. Now, that is not the context that we have today.
Well, it's not the only context, because when you look at judges, they were the ones who went out and dispensed the law.
Absolutely.
So if you go into a courtroom today, you have a judge, and she's not, or she or he is not sitting up there and saying, well, I don't think you should do this, giving an opinion on what you did. They're the ones who are telling you what the punishment is for what you did. So the judges in the Bible, they went out, and generally it was some sort of war thing. They went out and dispensed punishment.
No, that's absolutely correct. All right, and as you'll think back, Samson was a judge, Gideon was a judge. Many of these people are judges, and they are actually judging either Israel or the people who are attacking Israel.
Right.
All right, they are actually dispensing a punishment or a judgment for this thing.
Right.
But that's not the context that we have today. Today, context is when, let's say, for sake of argument, someone is breaking the Sabbath.
Right.
And so, another Israelite walks up to that person and says, hey, you shouldn't break the Sabbath. And then that person's response is, you can't judge me. Judge not lest you be judged.
Right.
Okay? But see, this is the issue. That's not what that is. That's not judgment.
Right. That's not what the Bible verse it says or is talking about. Because the Bible tells you that you were supposed to tell people when they are breaking the law.
Oh.
Not so that you can make them feel bad about it, but so that you can uplift them and get them back into living the right way and following the law in harmony with the Most High. So it's not, you can't tell people that they are doing something wrong, because God tells you that you're supposed to tell people when they are doing something wrong.
Okay, so let's look at judgment. Let me transfer the word for just a second. Okay. Now, I know that it doesn't say this, and I know that there is no point in there where it makes this kind of transformation. But I'm going to reread that very first line, but I'm going to switch out the word judgment for correction.
Okay.
Because I think that's an actual better concept than judgment.
Right.
All right. So let's reread it one more time. Correct not, that ye not be corrected. Okay. And if we continue on, for with what correction ye, I guess, judge. I mean, it doesn't really sound right, if you kind of think about it. But the idea is that you can't correct someone without getting yourself together first.
Right, right.
Okay, that is the actual idea. And if you go all the way through this and think about it, that's what he is laying out right here.
It's also, today people look at it as it's a negative.
Right.
Judge not, that ye be not judged. Well, I'm an Israelite. I'm following the Most High. I'm following the laws. That is what I'm trying to do. So if I'm doing something wrong, I want you to correct me. So if it says, for with what judgment ye judge, ye shall be judged. That's a good thing. If I am judging you based on whether or not you were following the law, and you're judging me based on whether or not I'm following the law, that's a good thing. It keeps us both on the same plane.
So, can you read another verse for me?
Okay.
Okay, so this one is in Proverbs 3, 10 through 12, because I like context too.
Okay, so Proverbs 3, 10 through 12, verse 10. So shall thy barns be filled with plenty, and thy presses shall burst out with new wine. My son, despise not the chastening of the Lord, neither be weary of his correction. For whom the Lord loveth, he correcteth, even as a father the son in whom he delighteth.
Okay, so this is that same point that you were just bringing out. The idea is, as an Israelite, we're all trying to get on the right path. And we may stumble and come off of that path. And what you want is someone to pull you back onto that path and keep you going in the right way. Now, the other point is, also as you said, you need to be doing self-correcting, trying to keep yourself as straight as you can before you decide to step out and get somebody else back on the path. You've got to make sure you're on the path itself.
Right.
Now, I've got a few more verses as we continue on down. If we look at verse 3, 4, and 5. Matthew 7, 3, 4, and 5. I get a little excited. I kind of like this stuff. All right. And if you don't mind, read Matthew 7 and 3 for me again.
And why beholdest thou the mote that is in thy brother's eye, but considerest not the beam that is in thine own eye?
Okay. Now, these groups down here are that same concept that we were talking about just a second ago, where the whole idea is getting ourselves straight and then helping others get as straight as possible. And I use straight, but I mean getting on the path to going toward the Most High. So, continuing on with that thought, correction is, how do I want to say this? It feels hard.
Right.
Okay? And the Bible, when I go back and I was looking up correction, I'm looking up judging, it gives you that same concept, all right? That hearing correction is difficult. Mm-hmm. Okay? So, if you don't mind, read Proverbs 22 and 15, just this one line.
Foolishness is bound in the heart of a child, but the rod of correction shall drive it far from him.
Okay, so if you'll notice, it uses the concept of the rod of correction.
Right.
Right? Like it is, like it hurts you. I mean, you get correction and it like hurts you. So it uses that same idea a little bit later. And this is another verse that people confuse. Okay, so read Proverbs 23, 12 through 14 for me.
Apply thine heart unto instruction, and thine ears to the words of knowledge. Withhold not correction from the child, for if thou beatest him with the rod, he shall not die. Thou shalt beat him with the rod, and shalt deliver his soul from hell.
Okay, now you'll notice, and a lot of people are like, well, the Bible just says beat your children. Okay, that's not what it's talking about here. This rod is the rod of correction from a few moments ago.
Okay.
Okay, it's talking about hitting someone with the law, explaining to them and putting it on them, and it's hard. All right. This is also why it says when you beat them with a rod, they shall not die, because you're not going to die. That's not what's going on here. All right. But as we said just a moment ago, the idea is a matter of correction. Hearing it, sometimes it's difficult. Sometimes it hurts. All right. Sometimes it hurts, just like being beaten with a rod. But in all reality, that's what you want. As it said earlier, you want to get as correct as possible.
Well, this just hurts me, because you read these verses and I got all excited. I was like, I've been saving up these rods forever. You just won't use them on them things.
On my kids?
Yeah.
I'm not beating the kids. That's not how this is.
Wow, now I just got to keep putting them back.
We are not beating the children. That is not how this works. It's not the idea. Okay. Now, I want to take one more look at this group of verses, but I want to take it from the other point of view for just a second. So, as we said at the very beginning, one of the big things that people do is they say, and the reason I think they say it is because they don't want to be judged. They don't want that rod of correction to come toward them.
Uh-huh.
Right? But what happens if you don't? Let's say that you let people do whatever they want to do.
Right.
All right? And I think Zephaniah, I think that I'm saying that right? Zephaniah
Okay.
3:1 through 7 actually explains what happens if you just let correction go.
Okay, so Zephaniah 3. Woe to her that is filthy and polluted, to the oppressing city. She obeyed not the voice, she received not correction, she trusted not in the Lord, she drew not near to her God. Her princes within her are roaring lions, her judges are evening wolves. They gnaw not the bones till the morrow. Her prophets are light and treacherous persons. Her priests have polluted the sanctuary. They have done violence to the law. The just Lord is in the midst thereof. He will not do iniquity. Every morning doth he bring his judgment to light. He faileth not, but the unjust knoweth no shame. I have cut off the nations. Their towers are desolate. I made their streets waste, that none passeth by. Their cities are destroyed, so that there is no man, that there is none inhabitant. I said, surely thou wilt fear me. Thou wilt receive instruction, so their dwelling should not be cut off. Howsoever, I punished them, but they rose early and corrupted all their doings.
Okay, so I brought this up because this group of verses here seems to be just like if we let correction go and we do not actually correct each other, we can fall into this same situation where our towers are desolate and our people are dispersed. Okay? So, to bring all that back around, that is why correction, and I know that it uses the word judgment, is so important for us in Israel. It's so important for us to keep us on the right path, because if not, we're just going to fall away.
Okay, I want to look at this from just another point of view for a moment, because we also have to think about our hearts,
right,
and what's in them when we are correcting people. And because if we go to Ezekiel Chapter 16,
right,
if you read down around verses, let's say 51,
okay,
and I'm not going to read it because I really think you should read all of it to get a better understanding. But in this, we're talking about the cities of Sodom, Gomorrah, Samaria, and they're referenced as sisters,
okay,
right? And what's going on is God says in this that he punished these cities because they were doing bad things.
right,
But we saw that they were doing these bad things, and we agreed that the punishment was good, but then we did even worse things than they did. So yeah, they did bad things, but in us, we did even worse things, and it made what they did not seem so bad. It made kind of, because of how evil we became, it made the evil that they did seem kind of just or righteous, right?
I got you, yeah.
And if you go to Jeremiah 3 and 8, it says, "She saw that because faithless Israel had committed adultery, I gave her a certificate of divorce and sent her away. Yet that unfaithful sister Judah had no fear and prostituted herself as well."
Okay.
And then if you go to Jeremiah, if you go down to 11, it says, "And the Lord said to me, faithless Israel has shown herself more righteous than unfaithful Judah."
Okay.
Right? So a lot of times we get this stuff in our heart. We'll see these people who were doing wrong, and we want to, we get prideful. We're better than you because look at what we're doing. Look at what you're doing. We're better than you. And in that pride, that's when evil comes in, and then we end up going further
Afield
than the people we were first sticking our noses up at.
I got you.
And when you look at the first one, Ezekiel 16, and it's talking about the sisters, I want to, just for a moment, I want to look at men, right? The brothers, and look at women, the sisters.
Right.
You have a lot of men who talk down upon sisters.
Right.
And talk about all the things that they're doing. You got tons of videos about it. All these brothers saying all of these horrible things. They seem very prideful. And you have brothers saying, well, you got to have that rod of correction. You got to beat your wife. You got to beat that woman. Keep her in line. You're the head. Don't let her do this. Don't let her do that. And they mistreat the sisters because they feel like they're better than them.
Okay.
Right? But then the same treatment that they give those sisters, beating them, talking down about them, whatever, they're receiving in the street, right? Because it says, by what measure you judge, you will be judged. So yeah, men are physically stronger than women, and if you have some reprobated minded Israelite or brother out there who thinks that beating on his wife and talking nasty and down to her is what he has to do in order to be a man, he can do that because she doesn't have the physical strength to fight back against it. But then he finds when he's leaving that house and going out there into the world, God is sending that judgment right back on him.
I got you. I see the point. I got you.
See what I'm saying?
I got it. I see where you're coming from.
So it's it's we have to not look at just the worldly aspects and the physical aspects, but we got to look at what's in our heart. Because I also see videos where a woman, an Israelite sister, will be somewhere and somebody will try to do something to her, or they do something to her, and you'll have our brothers standing around just looking, not coming to her defense, because in their heart they feel like, well, this is what she deserves. But my question is if in your heart you feel like this is what she deserves, what do you deserve? So when we talk about judge, not lest ye be judged, let's think about how we are making judgments on just individual groups of people for this or for that as well.
Okay. All right. I got you. Well, and that's the thing. I think every verse should get you to think about more than just the words that are used, but how it applies to you personally, how it applies to you and the nation itself, and also what is it we say? The word should convict you. The whole idea is that it should get you to look inside and make that, and I'm going to use this word right now, judgment on yourself.
Right. So don't be a hypocrite.
Which is what it says at the very end of the verse. That is the idea. Not to be, as it says, thou hypocrite, cast out the beam out of thy own eye, and then you can see clearly to cast a mote out of your brother's eye.
Right. So we're supposed to be humble, and when we start thinking for some reason that we are better than someone else, then that humbleness goes right out the window.
Right. Okay. So guys, thank you all so very much for spending a little bit of time with us going over the Bible. Hopefully it got you to pull out your Bible and think about your relationship with the Most High. Please check us out over on Facebook or YouTube or any of the social medias that we happen to be on. And do you have anything else?
Kwame Yasharala.
I'm praying for you, 'cause I know you don't understand.